an author update. I've done a book tag for my birthday, and I've done a readathon update. So today is going to be April's TRC sort of stream. And that, if you are new around here, is something that stands for Truth and Reconciliation. Usually it's commission. But for me, for this year, it's the climate as part of the Climathon. Truth and reconciliation commissions around the world have been used to try to heal a population by first getting everyone's feelings out and being heard about some trauma that they've collectively gone through, and then hopefully trying to think up ways to address those injuries and work together and knit the population together so that people who were angry before are now feeling heard and part of the community and can go forward in a positive, fruitful way. So after last November, I had a big wake up and, just another bump on the path of thinking about what we're doing to the climate and how irrevocable it seems and how disastrous it seems, and what can we really do against all this hate, to quote a great movie, this reckless hate. But that's what these talks are about this year. So I'm just like talking myself and inviting people on to talk about subjects that are close to their hearts and heavy on their chests so that we can talk this out and sort of work through our grief. So April's TRC is going to be about my current reads and how everything is climate. Not that every book is about climate, but I'm looking through the lens of climate change, and just I want to reflect on some of the things that I've been thinking as I read through other things. Now I've left off the mysteries and the romances and the little books that don't really have a thing, but I'll ask you all about some of those reads later. So welcome everybody. I have a question of the day in the chat if anyone wants to talk about Independent Bookstore Day before we kick off. But yeah, just say hello to people in the chat. Hi, Jocelyn. Happy Sunday. Jocelyn, a gardener. I'm not going to say fellow gardener because I can't do it, but nice to see you. Cat Paws here. Hello, hello. Happy Sunday. And Monique Joyner, otherwise known as Mojo. Need to close some of these tabs. Stream is slow. Oh, that could be me. That definitely could be me. Hello, hello. Hi, Jim. How's it going? So basically I looked at my collection of current reads, since I'm reading like 7 at once, kind of, sort of. And I also looked at a couple of the books that I got for my book hauls over the past week or so. So it's going to be a little bit of a book haul point out video, but mostly just sort of reflecting on how I'm seeing things and what's coming up in these different reads. So what I put on my thumbnail are these. I'll start with the first one, which is, there we go, a Libro.fm pick. So this is a new release. It's called What the Body Knows by John Trousdale, and it's about our immunity system. Now this, if you know anything at all, you probably have heard me express frustration about the fact that I don't know how any of this works. Biology, what's that, right? So this is going into deep level detail about immune systems and how they work, and like down to the subcellular level, turning into lots and lots of interesting things, but it's hard to follow sometimes. I was listening to it while I was driving, and trying to take notes on an audiobook on your phone while you're driving is not recommended. So I paused on this, but I'll come back to this later when I talk about themes. But one of the interesting things is that we didn't know this beforehand. This is like new science, right? In the past 20 years, maybe. And learning about how our immune system functions and why we're going from one type of viral sort of infection to another, and why autoimmune conditions are becoming so prevalent. you need like the basis of understanding what we're made of and how we function. So this is pretty interesting, but hard to inculcate, I guess. So I'm working hard at this one, and we'll see how I do by the end, right? The other Libro.fm, let's see if this popped up. Yes, I have multiple tabs open as well, Mojo, so I could be ready for you guys. The other Libro.fm read that is a new release is called Herbs, Pure and Simple, or Herbs, if you're from the country where the author is from. I love this name. I've never heard it before. Jekka McVicker. So she is apparently a plant personality, and she has a big herb farm near Bristol. And this was actually recorded, I just noticed, between 1999 and 2001. So it's over 25 years old. And it sounds like it's little clips of a TV show that was recorded back then about her going on walks, picking things, coming back, showing what she does with them. Some of them are plants, some of them are herbs, but she's got this vast knowledge, this vast farm, over 600 types of herbs, and she calls them herbs, even if we sometimes consider them more plants. I've only gotten a little bit into this, but there's something she used on the first walk was like something for soap, something for depression, something for dandelion tea. So that's just like a nice tea. And there was a fourth thing. So she's just going out, seeing what she can see in her country lane, and making it useful. And the knowledge that she has in her head facilitates that. And I wish we had that all the time. So that's something we did have before that we sort of lost, and I'm trying to claw it back, as the phrase goes. So that's my other Libro.fm read. And I guess that's it for the current read. So let me switch back to this. Okay, so Cat Paw, I am still enjoying this, but I did wake up at like 5 in the morning, reliving a scene and going, why did it have to go like that? So this is book 2 in the series called Boudica by Manda Scott. Again, this is like 20 years old or more, and it's a 4-book series about Boudica, who's a folk hero of the British tribes before the Romans invaded and conquered Britain around 30 AD, 50 AD. And it goes into a lot of detail about the cultures that were then. And as I said, when I reviewed the first book in my wrap up last Wednesday, the amount of detail, if it's not actually known to be true, is overwhelmingly appearing so, because you've got religious rites, you've got environmental wisdom, you've got seasonality to the culture, and the relationships are so well thought out. So there's a lot of that. Again, I'm going to point this out for later, that is past knowledge of our environment that I'm really feeling its lack, I guess, today. Because while we may have knowledge of other things like subcellular particles, we don't know how to go out and like find something in the ground that will make us feel better, which I think would be a pretty cool skill. So it's fictionalized. We're talking about very detailed events in the people's lives. And yet it feels very real. And like I say about my historical fiction, you can't prove that it didn't happen. Because we're taking landmarks in the timeline that are true. So I really am enjoying this, even though it's quite sad, quite a heartbreaker. Let me catch up here. Oh, Mojo says, no, not you. I had to complete my 6 newsletters for next month and had about 60 open tabs. Well, okay then. I was just going to say it could be me because I'm on Wi-Fi instead of plugging in. I'm in a tiny little corner in a different bedroom because we're doing some renovation work in this house of my parents. And so it's a full house. All the bedrooms are full. And I got to keep the cat out of here. All my stuff is in here. All my books, like the cat stuff and laundry and all the stuff that was sitting here before. So if you want to see, I put up a couple pictures. I said, what do I have to do to get this look on camera? And I showed you the look the other way if you're looking out the window, which is pretty funny, on Instagram stories, if anyone's over there. Jocelyn says, sounds like a very useful read. I bet that's the herb one. Yeah. And Jim says, Boudica featured in the police procedural I just finished. What? That's cool. Huh. You said that was an AI and a detective superintendent. Someone is contributing to the discussion. So there was a Boudica character or somehow referenced in the AI police procedural? That's so funny. That's cool. And yes, the herbs book. Yeah. So Jekka McVicker, I love that name, has a bunch of herb books, but this is a new release that is like chopping up of an old BBC production into like a little less than 3 hours, I think. And I was like, I can handle that. I can do that. So yeah. He's on the bed. He's just annoyed with me, which fair enough. Okay, Kep, I think you've read them before, but maybe you're rereading them. I need to get back to Booktube, but you'll probably finish it before me anyway. It's it's creeping into my dreams. It's so good. It's so well written. I'm really enjoying it. So good recommendation. Jim says one of the main characters had a Boudica poster, and Boudica's last battle was close to the crime scene. Oh, okay. Well, don't spoil the battle for me, because even though it happened 2,000 years ago, I mean, I'm reading about it like it's the next big thing, right? Yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay, so other current reads. I've got this one, Utopian Craftsman. I've put it down for a bit because I'm trying to focus on the other climate change focused reads. But this is one of the decor sort of design books that I'm reading for arts and crafts background. I don't know what this will be researched for because I'm not currently writing anything in this timeline, 1850s to 1890s to 1900s. But it definitely feels like there's something there. So even if I'm just going to borrow like the utopianness, right? Because there's a lot of people that had different ideas about government systems in Britain in the 1820s and 30s, and including Daniel O'Connell. And people were talking about federalism. People were talking about responsible government, not yet, but representative government and all these different things. And then 20 years later, you had these socialist utopians who wanted to build a better world. And I love that. So maybe I'll try to capture some of that energy and put it in a different expression, different era. But this is by Lionel Lambourne. It's called The Arts and Crafts Movement from the Cotswolds to Chicago. So I did read the book on William Morris, and this is sort of the next bit, taking it a little bit further. And I love the illustrations because it's like all these little watercolors and architectural plans, and everything looks like beautiful because it's not a photo, so you don't have to stage it. But yeah, utopian energy is something I think we could draw from. I like it. There's a good vid on the tube with Tony Robinson about Boudica. If I can find it later, I'll send you a link. Tony Robinson, the motivational speaker? Huh. I'm a little cherry, if that's the right word, since it's a British word, of like Tony Robinson as a speaker. He just feels very, what's the expression? Like swish bang, like showy. I don't know. Catpaw says some nice scenery to get a visual idea. Time Team. I don't know that one. Okay. He needs a middle initial. Wait, what? Baldrick. I now know what he looks like. Okay, yeah. So, Kapos is a British actor and presenter, and hi, Laura said Baldrick. So, yeah, if you follow Blackadder, you know the Hugh Laurie and I'm gonna forget his name. Hugh and the narrator for Harry Potter. Anyway, and Baldric, who I didn't know the actor's name. So, yeah, cool. He's a presenter for a Time Team, and he's done a program on Boudica. Okay, that makes much more sense in the context. Okay, cool. All right. So, those are my next two books, two Libra reads, two used book finds. I've been reporting back on this one. We're doing a slow readathon with Grace for How to Do Nothing. It's in the description if you're curious. It's by Jenny Odell, and we're all rereading this together. The energy that I get from this book that I feel is important for climate action and climate reflections is, and I didn't know the name of this song. And if Gareth is ever going to watch this, he'll laugh at me. There's a song that's like, you gotta stop and look around. Do, 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 here it comes. And I didn't know the title of that song, which comes right after that part, which is 19th Nervous Breakdown by the Rolling Stones. So I might have guessed it was the Rolling Stones because of the sound, but I never knew that song title. So this book is about stopping and looking around at the system you are trapped in, right? So right now, to me, and what I put in the top of the description is that it feels like we're getting flooded with sensory inputs, right? It's all this tragedy, it's all this catastrophe, it's all this, you need to do this now. And that is part of the attention economy, friends. And much of that is driven by capitalist greed. Surprise! So this is trying to take yourself out of the system to be able to look at it and be like, oh, that's why I always feel like that. Or, oh, that's why I can't get a good night's sleep. Things like this. And Grace just put up her thoughts on chapter 1. I put up mine last Wednesday for the wrap up, and it's really nice to take something slow and let it simmer in your mind. Hopefully not headed for a 19th nervous breakdown, but you never know. So definitely recommend that. Oh, there's this. Okay, so this is the one, Odd Duck, right? So this one I finished. This is a borrowed book. It's Mark Hampton on decorating, and it's from the late 80s. And I did tag a few pages, but this is another book that is all about the designs and taste and what you can do to be creative with not with space, because it's not a small space thing, but it's just thinking about changes over the years, but it's got nothing to do with conservation, preservation, sustainability. And so this is making me, with the climate lens, realize that 1989 was a time of no consequences, right? The biggest thing this person is worrying about is losing a resource, or doing something wrong and losing an antique. And I'm like, okay, I love you, but you're not pertinent to the discussion. But this is a pretty good ratio so far. That's 1 of 5, right? And I did enjoy it, and I did get some ideas from my place, but I will be adding a layer of, well, how can I make this as sustainable as possible in terms of paint and wallpaper, supporting craftsmen, going local, all that kind of stuff. But here are the final 2 that are actually bang on to climate change, and I'm reading them for the Climathon. So I started with this one, Rituals for Climate Change by Naomi Ortiz. And she is a disabled activist, a Crip struggle for eco-justice. And when I was talking to Victoria Wright Stuff, who's hopefully coming on the channel next month for a TRC discussion, she wanted to talk about mental health and disability and climate change. And I think she's going to be talking more about mental health and anxiety or other conditions in dealing with this mentally, whereas this author who I picked is more dealing with it as a physical disability. And so I'm hoping those will be complementary. I couldn't get into this at first because it was poetry and I am not well versed in poetry. But then I picked up her other book, which is Sustaining Spirit, Self-Care for Social Justice. And okay, so she knows of what she speaks, right? So Naomi Ortiz is a disabled person of color and working in the environmental movement. And some of the things that I was reading in this were like, oh, yeah, like just a really good illustration of intersectionalism, a really good modeling of self-care in a way that's not expensive bath oil, not what's marketed us to be bought. Um, so then I put this down because I didn't want to get too far into it and lose track of this one. And this had so much more meaning for me, which is really cool. So it may have been because the book developed on its own, or it may have been because I like turned a corner and my eyes were open. But yeah, she's going between poems and interludes and sort of memoir pages. And she's talking about the fires in the Southwest and the desert and how she can care for it and how she's caring for herself. And I just think it's really powerful. Um, she talks a lot about the process and how she used to tackle things and how she's reconsidering them. And that's really helping me figure out what's the process. Like, I've done a lot of thinking and stewing and simmering, to give you cooking metaphors, but like, how do I get out there? How do I take those small steps so that I can end up acting and feeling like I'm making a difference? So yeah, big things. So those two, and they're both from the library and they're both really good. So those are the current reads. And then I'm going to switch to looking at them a bit differently. But thank you, Stephen Fry. Why couldn't I think of that? I kept thinking Ian, and I'm like, why? It's short. It's something short. But I think I was thinking of Fry. Jim says Boudica was an important element in the police procedural. I won't say more. Spoilers. Oh, okay. So spoilers for your book as well as for mine. Okay, good. Keep mum. So I think that is the link Cat Paw's dropping for Time Team special on Boudica. Cool. All right. I'm going to open another tab for that so that I don't forget. Cool. Let's see. Am I forgetting to put anything in? I don't think so. I don't see anyone answering the independent bookstore day question. So I'm going to go into the book haul piece and give you a second to answer if you got a book for independent bookstore day. I actually didn't go out for independent bookstore day because I learned that our contractor was coming, which is my brother-in-law, for a bunch of repairs on Friday night. And so I was like, well, I wasn't planning on going out on Saturday. I was maybe going to go, but I'd already gone on Friday to 2 bookstores, and I thought that was my way of supporting, because I know everyone's gonna be mobbed on Saturday. But then I was like, no, I really can't, because I gotta make all the beds and clean all the upstairs and move the cat litter and all that kind of stuff, and help mom get the house ready for people to be here and to make sure that we have stuff ready outside for them to repair the stuff. So that's what I did yesterday. So I did my book shopping before because I've been in town and I'm going to support the independent bookstores. And some of them definitely are visible with a climate lens. So this one is a beautiful new book. This is the only new book, I think. And I got it from an architecture bookshop. So I didn't know Slow had one of these. They didn't. It's pretty new, but they do now. It's MLYR, and on the front of an architecture studio, they have a little bookshop, and so they can curate a very small selection of books. And this one, it's sort of eye-catching. It's called Housing the Nation. It's a bunch of different people writing articles, and the subtitle is Social Equity, Architecture, and the Future of Affordable Housing. So if you get into social policy issues, I in doing so, have seen that it seems to be there's these broad swaths of categories that each contain their own sort of knot of things to untangle to try to get better, right? There's education, there's housing, there's healthcare, there's elder care, transportation. There's these sort of portfolios. And the thing is, they all have their own version of a Gordian knot, but they're all tangled, right? And so I think housing is one I know pretty little about. And so this seemed like a good introduction of lots of different viewpoints and lots of different interrelationships. So we've got the big picture. We have like sections here. We've got racial injustice and housing, which would complement and maybe go deeper on some of the books I've read about redlining and the Color of Law book, that sort of thing. We've got points of view, including affordable housing, view from a for-profit developer. And some of these are pretty New York City focused. There's one in Los Angeles. But for the international fans on the channel at the moment, since I know this may be like pretty opaque and weird, I know Britain has something called social housing that used to be called council housing. We don't have that. We have a labyrinthine process in the US called Section 8 housing, in which you require landlords to take a voucher, kind of like education system, and people who can't afford housing have a voucher to cover some of the costs of rent, and they present that when they're applying for places, but some people don't accept it. And that's the way that they think they're going to cover this cost or solve this problem. And I don't think it's ever worked. I don't know any place where there's never been like a really long wait list or like irresponsible landlords and terrible conditions in these places. So it's one of these like, yeah, that's not even a Band-Aid. That's like Scotch tape. That's not helping at all. So, I mean, maybe it has helped people in certain places, but like as a systemic solution, not going to cut it. So I was reading the book I buddy read with Brian at Bookish Texan was by a guy who tends to do lots of different layers, and it was about development and building houses, but it wasn't exactly as much as I wanted. It was part of the process to introduce a new housing development to a community, get the community input, talk back and forth between the developer and the community and the city, and then the affordable housing. How does that get negotiated? How is it financed? How is it handed off in terms of down the road? Can they just switch it up? Like, what's the law? That's the sort of stuff I wanted more of and more granularity, and I did not get it. So hopefully, like a view from a for-profit developer will get me some more detail to understand. That would be useful. In search of solutions, including rural housing, and then portfolio, which I think is different projects as examples. So, I mean, it's a shiny new book. It's from Rizzoli, which is a fancy publisher and bookstore in New York City. And it just looked really well contexted, if that's a word. It's not, but I'm going to make it a word. So there's that. And then I'm going to switch over to the digital. Monique says, I've been inside all weekend. So much to do before a flight next week. Yeah, definitely get outside. Take an herb walk. And see what you can identify. Cat Paw says, it will be interesting to hear because I've seen it more or less fail in 2 countries, neither of which is the UK. Social housing? Like in general? Or Section 8? Sorry, I should watch this as I'm speaking, but I'm trying to follow my point so I don't lose it by not looking at the chat until I finish my point. Monique says, Long Island, New York, learned all about it in the 70s, more so when I met friends through work who told me about it. Yeah. Well, what's interesting, I think when I read the Indian card, it was someone who worked in HUD, if I'm remembering right. It's been almost a year now, so maybe not. But she's an indigenous person who was questioning identity both in government and in tribal affairs and in her own life. And she sort of does this, like, what does it mean to be Native American today? And I think she came at it through housing. I think I'll go back and look at it, but yeah. Okay, so the last one here, share this tab. So this is one of the books I've hauled because a lovely person gifted this to me. It's Secret of the Oak Woodlands, Plants and Animals Among California's Oaks. And it's a local author, so that's why the person had copies of this. And this is the blurb in case you can't read it because it's tiny. A Californian may vacation in Yosemite, Big Sur, or Death Valley, but many of us come home to an oak woodland. Yet, while common, oak woodlands are anything but ordinary. In a book rich in illustration and suffused with wonder, author Kate Marienchild combines extensive research and years of personal experience to explore some of the marvelous plants and animals that the oak woodlands nurture. Acorn woodpeckers unite in marriages of up to 10 mates and raise their young cooperatively. Ground squirrels roll in rattlesnake skins to hide their scent from hungry snakes. Manzanita's rust-colored paper-thin bark peels away in time for the summer solstice, exposing sinuous contours that are cool to the touch even on the hottest day. Conveying up-to-the-minute scientific findings with storyteller's skill, Marienchild introduces us to a host of remarkable creatures in a world close by, a world that rustles, hums, and sings with the sounds of wild things, which I loved. It's a great description. So it's got beautiful little illustrations every so often. It's a jaunt about a certain plant or animal, like the one that I looked at was a newt, and I would open it to share it with you, except that I've bought so many books in the past few weeks, they're sort of scattered, and in the move yesterday, I don't know where it is, and now I can't go back in the other room to root around. So I'm just sharing the cover and the blurb with you. It's a very pretty book, and it's small, kind of like a trail guide size, and it just seems pretty delightful. So in terms of a book haul where I got a diversity of sources and a really rich resource for mining information, both for my daily life as well as like research, like this was another good find. And then come back. Sorry, I was going to start this out with, the dreaded Qatar, which none of you'd get because you're not stupid Victorian disease hounds like I am. But Qatar, Catarrh, means a runny nose. So it varies between runny and stuffed, but like, yeah, that was the fancy old Victorian word for it, which I find hilarious for some reason. The final book haul that I thought sort of could be viewed through a climate lens was Woman of Light. So this was on my wish list. Kali Fayardo Anstein, I think that's how I would pronounce it. So this is a book that is both Latinx and Indigenous in terms of the author's identity. It's historical fiction, and it's like about grit. So, I mean, this is like a really good story that I've wanted to put on my TBR. It's a coming of age adventure based on the author's family history. Luz Little Light Lopez, a tea leaf reader and laundress, is left to fend for herself after her older brother Diego, a snake charmer and factory worker, is run out of town by a violent white mob. With her witty and independent cousin Lizette in tow, Luz navigates 1930s Denver and begins to have visions that transport her, to the days of the Old West and her indigenous homeland in the Lost Territory. She bears witness to the sinister forces that have devastated her people and their homelands for generations. In the end, it is up to Luz to save her family stories from disappearing into oblivion. An epic, historical, gorgeous family saga, which kind of sounds like what I try to write. So I'm very interested to read this for author reasons, for writer reasons, as well as like it sounds like a ripping good yarn. So Yay for book hauls. All right. So the discussion point, to get back to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, is that many of the prompts for Climathon books can satisfy multiple, because they're about themes, they're about subjects, and you can have a book that is both about plants and written in a foreign country and about activism, right? So you get a lot of cross prompts for Climathon. And so that ability to sort of ooze it into everything is something I'm embracing, which I like. And let's see, I did current reads, I did the book haul, and then with the current reads themes that have come up is like their final piece here and what I'm reflecting on it. So the herbs and the immune system, like I said, those are about knowledge, either new knowledge or old knowledge. Even Burka is about old knowledge. And so for me, reading things that are about history or facts and science, it's sort of two sides of the same coin. I am part of a tradition that has lost this knowledge, and I wish we had it, and I mourn it, and I'm trying to claw it back, as I said. But also, I'm in a generation that did not prioritize science in my education. So I'm trying to catch up on that end, because it's only very specialized professions that know how this works and aren't necessarily incentivized to share that knowledge with everyone. So that pull is hard, but it's something to notice and incorporate into the plan. What's the plan? Hold on. The Rituals and the Sustaining Self-Care books by Naomi Ortiz about disability and climate change really are pointing to process work. So if you need knowledge in order to act on it as an informed decision maker, you also need process knowledge. And Naomi Ortiz is really explaining well how her process has changed and what she actually does to meditate, to return to her center, to draw energy, to be motivated, and to commit. One of the pieces that I read to my mom is about a little hummingbird nest that she noticed in her driveway. And, she's disabled. She has a motorized wheelchair, I believe. And so it's really hard to walk extra. So when she comes to the driveway, she notices that this hummingbird gets disturbed and leaves the nest every time. She's like, I'm distressing the hummingbird by doing this. And so she convinces her partner to not park in the driveway, to park on the street, to undergo the extra convenience, schlepping in everything, another 40 feet or whatever, so that she doesn't scare off the hummingbird. And in the end, she's noticing there's a little hummingbird baby. It looks like a little twig sticking out of the nest. And it was just a beautiful moment of like, yeah, you have to notice, first of all, you have to have the knowledge that that's going to harm someone else. You have to have the idea that you can change your behavior, that that's possible, that you can make space for other beings. And then you have to follow through. And what's funny is she'll come into the house and yell about, oh my God, this is so inconvenient. And then laugh at herself because like, oh wait, am I disturbing them now by yelling in the house? But also I'm laughing at myself because yeah, you can bitch about something, but also be committed to the cause. It's just sort of a weird coping mechanism. I don't know if you can relate. But yeah, she's got a lot of these sharing of like little pieces of her life that she's trying to figure out and struggle with. And that to me was really valuable in terms of process. And one of the things that popped up in my head recently was like, she's talking about interdependence and how do we be there for each other in terms of the environment or people. And for me, something that came up when I was reflecting on that was like, I don't want to be depended on, which is a weird thing to say because there's that statement right next to I'm very dependable, which is a belief about myself. Like when I say something, I'll follow through and I expect other people to do the same. But like, don't expect it, in this day and world. So I was like, why don't I want to be depended on? And when I thought about it, I was like, it's because assumed in that dependent on is a taken for granted feeling. So really what I don't want to be is I wrote it down, unappreciated. And I feel like depended on often stands in for unappreciated in our society. So I was just thinking about that and going, okay, interesting. I'm picking apart these values and beliefs that I've had for 30 years. Uh, so just inviting you to do the same and think about interdependence, what it would actually look like. Because that's what Naomi Ortiz does. She's there for the desert. The desert sees her. She's trying harder. She's, trying to have boundaries that are healthy for other people. So yeah, that was really a good point of discovery for me. And then the final sort of reflection about this was the Do Nothing book. So I gave my sort of noticings in chapter 1 last Wednesday, and then Grace shared her video on that yesterday or the day before. And this sort of brings the two threads together, right? So we have knowledge, we have herbs, we have immune systems, we have housing policies, like all this knowledge that I'm gathering, that I'm good at gathering. And then we've got process. How do I share this? How do I find the step that I can influence in the system? How do I change how this is done in my local community? And then the do nothing thing is about making more informed decisions. So stopping, getting out of the system, looking at it and going, oh, there's the spot. That's where I can do it. Or, oh, that's what I need. And I need to take time for that. So it's like the knowledge and the process and then putting them together. So I think this is actually like a good practice. I'm not going to do this all the time, but looking at these are the books I'm currently reading. These are the books I just hauled. Most of them have bearing on climate catastrophe and how I'm living my life. And let's just take a look at what I'm picking up and what I'm reaching for. And is it really what I need? And is it getting me to take more steps and more action and be braver? So that's TRC for today. And I have one more question, which is, I'll type it in the chat. What percentage of your reading is pertinent to climate change, activism, whatever you want to call it? So when I look at my current reading, it's definitely like 70% climate change pertinent, I'll say. Like there's some way you can look at it that's related. But when I look at the book haul, which is mostly used, it's harder to get pertinent climate books. So there was a lot of like classics and mysteries. And I got 2 Anne Perry books for those of you who are like, oh, I don't know, Anne Perry. She's dead. Like, I want to finish the series. It'll be like the second long series after Maisie Dobbs that I will have ever finished in my life. The William Monk series. So, I'm not a completionist. But, mysteries, I think there's a couple older romances. Elizabeth Goudge, I found Elizabeth Goudge. So the percentage for me in the book haul of recent days is probably more like 30%, but I don't know. It's just an indicator that might be useful, might not, about where my focus is and where my follow through is, So I thought that was interesting. But that's it for us today. Just a bunch of rambling about climate feelings. And that's part of the TRC. If you want to yammer on with me about a certain aspect of climate catastrophe that you're living through, whether it's people cutting down trees near you, or it's people at the city who are making disastrous decisions, or whether it's like healthcare related stuff. Maybe it's the energy bills that are making the wrong decisions, whatever you're like up in arms about, and if you want to talk about it and come on my channel and make more people aware of it, that's what this series is for. I'm doing a monthly space holding for truth and reconciliation for the climate. So I've got a guest for May, fingers crossed. And if you have a specific theme or topic, definitely write and let me know, and we'll get you on the calendar. I'm hoping to have another guest in June for Caribathon, Caribbean Reading Month, and maybe one in September that I've got my eye on, but there's plenty of open spots for the rest of the year, so please let me know. And with that, oh, Mojo's like getting on crystals. Well, the place where I got the biggest book haul was a used book and crystal shop, but I didn't even look at the crystals. I was so laser focused on scanning the shelves for books that were on my wish list. So I can't say that I actually paid attention. Kappa says, I'm coming back from burnout and reading slump still. So whatever looks interesting. But I'm reading that water book right now. I'm very slow consumer, using and reusing and climate aware in general. Yeah, I think that's lovely. And the water magic or water, I know which one you mean, and I can't remember the name, but yeah, that's a nice noticing book. That's a good climate lens book. So that is it for me today. That's what I was going to say. So thank you all for watching, and I hope you tune in for the next stream. It'll be the first Friday of May, so May 2nd. We'll see you at 9:30 or 10, probably 10 because I got to go to the bakery on the coast and back because it's so good. I can't not go once a week. Gotta get that croissant and like stock up for my mom's goodies as well. So hopefully you have something nice to treat yourself to in your neck of the woods and some good reads and rest for yourself today. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. Take care and happy reading.